I had no idea how heavy the weight of betrayal could feel until that fateful dinner. The moment I stepped into the dining room, a gnawing sense of unease settled in the pit of my stomach. My mother had strategically placed my brother and sister at the table, each occupying the seats of honor. My heart sank as I realized I was relegated to the edge, a mere afterthought in the family arrangement. The fine china glimmered under the dining room chandelier, a stark contrast to the tension hanging thick in the air like a storm brewing just out of sight. Even the smell of my father's famous ribeye, rich and smoky, did little to stir my appetite. I watched as my sister, always the favored one, took a slice of the steak, her laugh ringing through the dining room as if everything was perfectly normal. "Scarlett, you have to try this." "I think it's Dad's best yet," she said, her voice dripping with a sweetness that felt more like a taunt than an invitation. I could feel my cheeks flush, and I forced a smile that felt more like a grimace. "I think I'll pass," I replied sharply, clenching my fists beneath the table. I had learned over the years that showing my true feelings only opened the door for mockery. My brother chimed in, his fork dancing on his plate. "Maybe you should stick to rabbit food, Scarlett, being plant-based and all." I shot him a glare, trying to maintain my composure. "That's rich coming from you. Last I checked, you still buy your clothes from the clearance rack at that cheap store." The atmosphere thickened with uncomfortable silence. My parents exchanged looks, an unspoken communication that promised to shut me down if I dared speak out of turn again. The sound of my grandfather's old clock ticked, each second echoing in my ears like a reminder of all the time I had wasted trying to win their approval. "This is why we are having this dinner," my father said, finally breaking the silence. He leaned back in his chair, hands folded, a bastion of calm in the turbulent waters of our family dynamics. "We need to discuss the future of the family business." My heart raced. This again, I thought, the familiar sense of dread creeping over me. All I could remember about the family business was being sidelined whenever it came to decisions. "Scarlett, you don't have a stake in this," my mother said smoothly, a hint of condescension lacing her tones. Her full-bodied coffee lay forgotten next to her half-eaten salad, and for a moment all I could focus on was the fact that my favorite mug, the one I had painted with my own hands when I was 10, was nowhere to be found on the table. "I don't have a stake. I have the same last name as you, don't I?" I shot back, instant regret clutching my throat as I realized I had gone too far. My mother's eyes narrowed, and for a split second I thought maybe I had glimpsed her true feelings, recognition of my anger, a chance for understanding. "We've worked hard to build something, Scarlett," my father interjected, his tone icy. "This is not a game, we are talking numbers here." He waved his hand dismissively as if my existence was as inconsequential as yesterday's leftovers. I felt my pulse quicken, anger bubbling beneath the surface. "Numbers?" I echoed incredulously. "Is that all I am to you, a number, a statistic?" I could see my brother's smug grin return as if he thrived on my unraveling. "Calm down, Scarlett, it is just business, you're not cut out for this anyway." "Don't you dare," I warned, my voice shaking as I clenched my jaw. My sister, uncharacteristically quiet until that point, ventured, "Maybe if you had tried harder." I felt my face go white, the words stinging sharper than any knife. "Tried harder? You have always been the golden child. Always succeed, no matter how many chances you are given." My voice rang out in the air, raw and tinged with years of suppressed resentment. "What did Mom and Dad demand you achieve perfection from the moment you crawled out of the womb?" The dining room seemed to hold its breath, my heart pounding in my ears. The sheer panic on my mother's face was quickly masked by annoyance, and I felt the weight of her cool, hard stare. "You're being dramatic, Scarlett. No one asked for this level of what? Honesty." I cut in, my voice harsh. "I'm done pretending that everything's perfect, that your little family unit is above reproach. Just because you live in this mansion doesn't mean your hearts are stainless." "Scarlett," my father warned, his voice lowering as if we were having a private conversation when the entire family was present. "Watch your tone." "Watch my tone? You think I'm the problem here?" My palms were sweaty, and I could feel heat radiating from my face. "You all chose to favor those two over me, and this is what it has led to, this cold, empty space where family should be." I pointed towards my brother and sister, who exchanged bemused glances. "Do you really think I can't see what you all are doing? You act like I don't matter, like I'm nothing but an afterthought." I felt a rush of adrenaline, hoping that maybe, just maybe, they would finally listen. "We wanted to discuss the future, not your petty grievances," my father replied, a hint of frustration peeking through. I threw my hands up. "Fine, let's talk about the future. Let's talk about my future. The one you've been dictating for years. You think you can simply cut me off from every opportunity, every decision? Newsflash, I'm an adult." Pausing, I surveyed their expressions. Confusion mingled with irritation, a concoction I had felt far too often. You talk about the business like it's some sacred thing that only belongs to you, but it should belong to all of us. My sister leaned forward slightly, her fork trembling in her grip. What are you even talking about? Her voice was low, though there was a twinge of mockery in it. You don't care about the business, Scarlett, you never have. You know what? I replied, voice tight. You're right, I never have. You see, I was never allowed to care. But guess what? I'm not asking for permission anymore. This is my family too, and I deserve a say. The silence that followed was deafening. I could taste the bitterness of victory yet feel the uncertainty of my words hanging in the air. My brother shrugged, visibly unimpressed. You think just because you talk tough, it means you will have a chance. That money will just magically fall into your lap. You're living in a pipe dream, Scarlett. My chest tightened as his words landed on me like stones. You're out of touch if you think this is about money, I managed to say, forcing my voice to sound steady. I wanted them to see me, to understand the frustration that bubbled beneath the surface. This is about what we mean to each other. My mother sighed, as if her patience had just run out. We're not doing this right now, Scarlett. We have a business to run, and your whimsy is not a part of it. I could feel the tears welling up, threatening to spill over, but I swallowed hard. Whimsy. I repeated, incredulous. You call my dreams whims, you think I have no right to want what you have. This, I gestured to the luxurious surroundings, is built on the backs of us all. You act like it's yours alone. It is ours, Scarlett, and you've always been too absent to factor in, my father fired back, the finality in his voice making it sound as if he were sealing a door I had hoped would remain open. As I sat there, simmering in silence, rage surged through me like electricity. In that moment, I decided then and there I was done being the invisible one. I was tired of being overlooked, tired of letting them dictate the story of my life. They were treating this place like a trophy, but I had a stake in it, even if it seemed small. The room settled into an uncomfortable silence, anxiety dripping off the walls, filling the spaces in between us. Outside, the last streaks of sunlight sank beneath the horizon, illuminating my family in shadowy silhouettes. I could almost feel the air chilling as it pressed against my skin, the night encroaching like my determined spirit pushing its way out. Maybe it is time to talk about inheritance, I said softly, almost as if the idea had just occurred to me. Uncertainty flickered across my parents' faces. My mother opened her mouth in surprise, her hands trembling delicately as she reached for her coffee cup as if it were a lifeline. The tension escalated, palpable and charged. Scarlett, she began, but I cut her off. No, I think it's time to confront this for real. If you think you can choose favorites and cut me off from what is rightfully mine, you are making a grave mistake. I stood from the table, suddenly realizing that I had crossed an invisible line. I will not be the family member who just sits quietly anymore. A heavy tension filled the room, and I could see my siblings' expressions shift from amusement to shock. It was my turn to shuffle the cards of our long-standing game, and I was determined to play my hand with confidence. I turned and walked toward the door, each step hammering home my resolve. Scarlett, my father barked, the authority dripping from his tone. You cannot walk away from this. But I opened the door and paused, looking back just long enough to let the silence echo around us. The realization was an electrifying jolt, a clarity that washed over me like a wave. I knew then that I had ignited something that could not be easily extinguished. Oh, I think I can. It is time to face the truth about what this family has been hiding for too long. As the door slammed shut behind me, the sound reverberated in my ears, an empowering declaration of my independence. I didn't know what was next, but I could feel the smell of smoke in the air. The fire had been lit, and I was ready to watch it rage. I could still hear the echoes of that last family dinner ringing in my ears, the sharp clinks of silverware, and the stiff laughter barely masking the tension that had hung like an unwelcome guest over the table. Underneath the surface of the polite conversations, the bitter truth simmered, waiting for the right moment to boil over. As I sat in my small room later that night, the dim light of my phone illuminating the shadows, I could not push away the thought of what had been said, how it had been said, and what lay unspoken. My heart raced as I thumbed through the pictures in my mind. My brother's smug smile, my mother's tight-lipped expressions, and my father's growing resentment that had transformed into a bitter silence. What I had thought was a simple disagreement about an inherited house was morphing into something darker, something more sinister, like ink spreading across paper. Why can't they see what they're doing? I whispered to myself, the weight of that thought heavy on my chest. I had done everything right, or so I thought. Supportively cheering for my brother in his career, always the dutiful daughter, the one who made my parents proud. Yet somehow, despite my efforts, I felt like I was losing my place in this family, cast aside like a crumpled note. My stomach churned at the memory of my brother throwing his head back in laughter when I had mentioned my plans to renovate the house. Dad and Mom would never let you touch that place, he had taunted. They like me better. A flash of anger ignited within me, a feeling that I had been bottlenecking for far too long. I had once thought about the family home as a shared dream, a place with summers marked by laughter and winter holidays warmed by hot chocolate. Now it felt like a battlefield. The next morning, the morning light hit my face like an unwelcome hand, pulling me from my restless sleep. I rolled over and glanced at my phone, waiting for inspiration to strike or for something new to happen. That is when I noticed a text from my mother. "Let's have lunch today, it's been a while." My fingers trembled as I read the message. Was this mere coincidence, or was it a calculated move to ease the growing tension between us? I decided to play along. As I drove to the cafe that we frequented, abundant with the scent of freshly brewed coffee and baked goods, I felt a cocktail of anxiety and anticipation stirring in my stomach. The pavement glinted with morning dew, and the sun hung high in the sky, casting a glow that felt oddly deceptive. Walking through the cafe door, I heard the familiar jingle of the bell overhead. My mother was already seated at a corner table, her hands wrapped around a steaming cup. Her face bore the soft smile I had known my entire life, yet I could detect the underlying tension in her posture, the way her shoulders were slightly hunched, and how her fingers were drumming nervously against the table. "Scarlett, sweetie, there you are," she exclaimed, her voice buoyant, though I could hear the quiver beneath it. "Hi, Mom." "Just made it," I replied, trying to match her enthusiasm, even though I felt like I was walking through a trap. I slid into the seat across from her, and for a brief moment, we exchanged small talk about the weather and neighborhood gossip. It was the facade of normalcy that felt almost suffocating. Then the chatter died down and I felt it, the silence clawing its way between us, thick like fog. "So," I began, my voice floating in the air like a fragile feather. "How are things at home?" "Busy as usual," my mother replied, her gaze darting away. "Your father has been working long hours and your brother is, well, he is involved with some new project. Always the busy bee." I didn't want to waste any more time. "Mom, can we talk about the house?" My heart raced, and my palms felt clammy. I had rehearsed this conversation 1,000 times, but here I sat, feeling like a child asking for permission to jump in the deep end of the pool. She sighed, her gaze finally locking onto mine, a mix of surprise and sadness. "Scarlett, I know you love that house, but your father and I have plans. It is best if we keep things as they are. The house is complicated." Complicated. I had always hated that word. It was never complicated when it came to my brother who strutted through life with their approval. I leaned forward, my voice steadier than I felt. "But it's unfair. You and Dad don't seem to care that I want to make it my own. You know I have plans, I have dreams. Sweetheart, that house has a lot of memories, and your father and I simply don't want any changes," she replied, her tone patronizing. "You need to understand, sometimes it is not about what we want." I clenched my fists under the table. "It's about what your favorite does want, isn't it? I'm just the afterthought." My mother's expression softened momentarily but hardened again. "You know that is not true. We love you equally." "Equally. Is that why whenever there is something good, it is always given to him?" I pressed, hurt spilling out like a broken dam. "What, am I just someone who shows up for family pictures?" "Scarlett," my mother's voice turned authoritative, the table between us charged like an electric current. "That is entirely unfair to say. Your brother is. Is what, Mom? Better. What the heck makes him worth all the attention?" I sat back and cheered when he got that promotion, when I was the one who took care of everything at home for years. My voice rose, drawing the attention of people at nearby tables. Eyes shifted toward us and I suddenly felt exposed. My cheeks flushed, but I couldn't back down. Just then I noticed her hands tremble slightly around the mug and my heart twisted. "I didn't want this," she whispered, an expression of fatigue etched on her face. "I'm so tired of fighting. Your father feels cornered." "How do you think I feel? I am tired of being treated like I am invisible," I blurted, my emotions boiling over. "Mom, what will it take for you to understand? Why do you keep dismissing me and my dreams in favor of him?" Her eyes glistened, and I realized that whatever I had just said had struck a deeper chord than I intended. "Scarlett, it is because your father. I don't want excuses, I want to be heard. I want my chance, and it is unfair to have to fight for something that should belong to me." She opened her mouth to speak but closed it, an inner battle raging within her. "You have no idea the pressure we are under," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. Your father feels as if he has wasted his time, and your brother, he needs our support. Can't you see that? No, I can't see that, because all I see is you all choosing him over me always. I shook my head in disbelief, my heart pounding as the words left my mouth. What will it take for you to finally see me? With a breath caught in her throat and glasses of water trembling from the shaking hands of the waitress passing by, there was an awkward silence. There it was, the truth laid bare. The tables turned in an instant, the previously jovial atmosphere replaced by an icy tension. Scarlett, she finally said, her voice shaky. Your brother isn't the enemy, her voice faltered. What? You just what? Do you expect me to swallow this all like some child who lost a toy? This was mine, and I will not back down without a fight, I said, my heart racing with defiance. I've been there for you, for all of you, and I refuse to be treated like I am a burden. Just then my phone buzzed on the table, cutting through the swirling emotions. It was a message from my brother. Mom told me you were going to meet her for lunch. Hope you're not causing drama. Remember, I'm the favorite. Love ya. I felt my heart drop, a chill casting over me. Do you see that? I said, my voice shaking. He knows, you let him bully me and you're okay with it. She froze, the sadness in her eyes morphing into something resembling fear. Scarlett, forget it, Mom. I can't keep doing this. I stood up, pushing my chair back with a screech that drew more gazes. I don't think I want anything to do with this family anymore if this is how it is going to be. As I turned to leave, the clang of the bell echoed in my ears, and I pushed through the door, the world outside feeling simultaneously closed in and expansive. Stars swirled in my vision, a mix of rage and determination surging through me. I would not be sidelined any longer. This was only the beginning for me, and the journey for retribution, my road to reclaiming my life, had only just begun. Before I could take another step, a thought struck me. What if I had to expose those secrets? What if I had to go further than just talking? I needed something to turn the tide. My heart raced. I was done being the one who'd been wronged. I could feel it stirring in my veins, empowerment was igniting. This family was going to learn a lesson, feel the weight of their choices. This was not just about the house. It was about respect, about being seen. With renewed conviction, I headed for my car. The dark clouds overhead reflected the storm brewing inside me, a fierce reminder that my journey had only just started. A storm brewed in the air above Harrison Oaks, the kind of storm that made the trees sway and sent a shiver down my spine as I stood in the doorway of our home. The sky mirrored my heart, dark, angry, and full of tension. Inside, my family was gathered at the dining table. The smell of Mom's famous beef stew wafted through the room, mixing with the sharp scent of onion and garlic, but it did nothing to ease the dread that sat heavy in the pit of my stomach. Why are we having this meeting now? I thought, feeling my heart race as I recalled the last family dinner. The accusations had hung thick in the air, tearing through our fragile bond like a predator hunting its prey. My mother, ever the peacemaker, was clearly trying to mask the mounting tension, but my father sat at the head of the table, a volcano ready to erupt, his eyes focused on the letter in front of him, an inheritance notice that turned my world upside down. This is ridiculous, I muttered under my breath, clenching my fists to hide the shaking. Moments later, I entered the kitchen, the warm light softening the harsh reality that lay before us. As I crossed the threshold into the dining room, shoulders squared in defiance, every gaze landed on me, the air thick with unspoken accusations and silent judgments. There she is, my father said, his voice cutting through the murmur of the family. The lost daughter returning for another go at what was never hers. I froze, a wave of betrayal crashing over me. What do you mean? I demanded, my voice wavering despite my effort to sound strong. You know exactly what I mean. He turned his eyes to the table, where the letter lay with cruel finality. It was addressed to him, yet its content impacted us all. You are not entitled to a single thing from this family. My mouth went dry. I could barely swallow the anger bubbling inside me. What do you even know about entitlement? You chose my sister over me when you decided to invest everything in her future. If anyone is entitled, it is me. I sacrificed everything for this family. My words hung in the air, and I felt them hit like daggers, each syllable piercing through the widening chasm between us. My brother shifted in his chair, the creaking of wood filling the silence as he glanced back and forth between my father and me. Scarlett, just calm down for a second, he said nervously, raising a hand as though trying to mediate. I don't think this is a fight we should be having right now. I turned to my brother, hoping for some solidarity, but as I looked into his eyes, I saw nothing but fear. It's easy for you to say that, sitting back and not feeling what it's like to be pushed aside. I snapped, the frustration pouring out of me like an uncontrollable flood. My mother interjected, her voice softly pleading, "Let's not do this, please. We are a family. We should be united, not tearing each other apart." Her tone had that lovely quality that usually calms storms, but today it only served to stir the tempest within me. "United? Is that what this is?" I gestured toward the letter as if it were a ticking bomb, ready to explode in our faces. "You all are united in cutting me out." My heart raced, and I could feel the heat prickling my skin. My father slammed his palm down on the table, making the silverware rattle and sending my mother flinching backward. "Enough." He barked, his face taut with annoyance. "You want to talk about being cut out? I sacrificed my entire life to give you all the opportunities I couldn't have." He kept staring at me, his eyes narrowing like a wolf sizing up its prey. "But here you are, acting like you deserve something that was never yours in the first place." I could feel the weight of those words bearing down on my shoulders, making it hard to breathe. I was suffocating in the moment, trapped between anger and despair. "You think this is about the money? It is about justice, about being treated fairly." I could feel my voice cracking under the pressure, tears pricking the corners of my eyes, and I refused to let them fall. I would not give him the satisfaction. My sister, sitting silently, finally spoke, her voice laced with that cold indifference that always seemed to cut deeper than a knife. "You don't even understand what we have been through. You were always the favored child, detached from reality." There it was, the dagger to my heart. My hands shook and I gritted my teeth, trying to respond without letting my emotions tear through me. "Favoritism has nothing to do with it. I just want what is rightfully mine." My mother gasped, her hand flying to her mouth as if she had been slapped. "What is this really about, Scarlett? You have your own life, your own job. Why can't you just let go?" I shot back, "Because I shouldn't have to. You all could give me something to help me start over, the opportunity to be seen, to be heard." The silence that settled in the room was heavy and suffocating. My father's gaze bore into me, his expression complex, a blend of anger and something deeper, maybe fear. "You think this is a game? You think you can come in here, throw accusations, and expect everything to remain the same? You want fairness? Well, life isn't fair." I could feel my face flush as embarrassment washed over me, my heart pounding erratically. I turned away, locking eyes with my sister. She seemed like a stranger now, her indifference cutting through me. The family I once knew felt like a distant memory, replaced by this twisted version filled with resentment and betrayal. Then the doorbell rang, echoing through the stormy silence like a gunshot. I glanced at my brother, puzzled. Who would come here now? My brother shifted, an expression of cautious hope crossing his face. "Maybe it's someone to help us." I rolled my eyes, refusing to believe anything outside this family could save us now. "What help do you think anyone can provide when we are tearing ourselves apart?" My mother sighed in exasperation, moving toward the door with an air of defeat, brushing one of her hands through her hair in a move I recognized as her seeking calm. I half expected her to pull a rabbit out of a hat or something equally nonsensical. As she opened the door, I could hear the wind howling outside as if it were in tune with the chaos within. Standing in the doorway was the last person I expected to see, the family lawyer, television cameras trailing behind him. My stomach dropped. "I'm here for the inheritance reading," he called out, his voice breaking like a sudden storm. My family blinked in shock, the room going completely still. I felt a sinking feeling wash over me. I hadn't prepared for this moment, not at all. "Why now? Why so soon?" I almost whispered, feeling a sense of dread engulf me. The lawyer began to step inside, glancing around the room. "I apologize for the suddenness, but it is crucial to address these matters as soon as possible." Before anyone could voice a response, he gestured toward the letter on the table, an invitation and a call to confront the secrets that had been hidden for too long. Everything was spiraling out of my control, and I felt a rush of hopelessness knowing the family's dirty laundry was about to be aired in front of everyone. My mother's carefully constructed facade shattered, her face pale as she realized what this meant. My father remained resolute, his jaw set with determination, but even he could not hide the dread etched across his brow. "Get out," I shouted suddenly, my heart racing as I faced the lawyer with a newfound adrenaline. "This is not what we need right now." The tension was palpable, and I could feel the anger boiling up, the venomous words threatening to rupture from my mouth. But deep down, I feared the truth, afraid that this moment would reveal everything I had been fighting against, everything my family had built to keep hidden. "Scarlett, please," my mother implored, but I was already lost in my thoughts, drowned by the mounting anger and a deep sense of betrayal. I clenched my fists tight, somehow finding strength in the chaos swirling around me. The weight of the truth loomed large as I prepared for the storm that was about to break, not just outside, but within our family. shattering everything, revealing all the lies we had been living. We could no longer hide from the consequences of our actions, nor could we escape the lingering question of who would come out on top when all was said and done. The air crackled with tension, and I felt a fire ignite inside me, a determination to break free from this family mess, to reclaim my worth, no matter how deep the scars ran. Then came the thunder, a booming echo outside that felt like a warning of the battle yet to unfold. And as the lawyer stepped further into the house, tone jovial yet serious, I felt a chill run down my spine. The real storm was just beginning. I stood in the living room, my heart pounding like a drum, feeling the weight of my family's expectations pressing down on my shoulders. The dim light from the chandelier cast long shadows over the plush, velvet couch my parents had splurged on last year, and I could almost hear the echo of money being spent recklessly, while I felt invisible in that very space. My sister lounged on the couch, her fingers gracefully dancing over her phone, completely absorbed in whatever world existed behind that screen. It was as if a wall of glass had been erected between us, a barrier built on the years of favoritism and judgment that had shaped our family dynamics. "Why do you even care?" she said, glancing up, an eyebrow elegantly raised. I could sense the mockery lacing her words. It unnerved me. "I just want to know why it had to be this way," I snapped, my voice more sharply than I intended, echoing off the walls. My mother, standing at the kitchen counter, bustled around, stirring a pot of something rich and aromatic. The smell wafted through the air, clinging to my nostrils, mixing with the scents of freshly baked bread. I had always loved my mother's cooking, but today the deliciousness felt hollow in my throat. She didn't even look up from her task, her shoulders tense, like she was preparing for battle without a sword. "Scarlett, don't make this harder than it needs to be," my mother replied, her tone implying that I was the one stirring the pot of drama, not the literal pot bubbling away behind her. "Harder? You cut me off from the family inheritance as if I'm some stranger." I felt the fire rising within me. It was blinding, leaving no room for reason or logic. "You made it so easy to choose sides." My father strolled in, all confidence and power, as if he was entering a board meeting rather than his own home. He glanced between my sister and me, the faint hint of disapproval etched on his face. "What's this about?" he demanded, a thundercloud hovering over his expression. My heart sank, realizing he would side with her, always her. I could feel it deep in my gut. Others called it instinct. I called it pain. "Scarlett's just being dramatic again," my sister chimed in, her voice dripping with sweetness that felt more like poison. "It's not like anyone wants her to be in the family business anyway." Each word was like a knife, cutting deeper and deeper, and I struggled to maintain my composure. "You think I want to? You think I care about that money?" The truth was I did, but admitting it would make me seem greedy. I felt my resolve waver as I glanced at my father. "You two have made it clear where I stand in this family." "Stop playing the victim," my father said, his voice firm, dismissive. "You know very well that it was your choices that set you apart." The heat in my cheeks was unbearable. I could feel my hands shaking at my sides. What choices? The choice to always come second to my sister's bright future? I never stood a chance. My voice cracked, and I hated how vulnerable it made me feel. My parents exchanged glances, and in that moment I saw it, the shared understanding that sealed my fate. "Watch how you speak to your father," my mother warned, a tremor of authority in her voice. "You are not above the consequences of disrespect." My heart felt heavy, the pang of betrayal washing over me like a crashing wave. Every confrontation felt like a dance where I never knew the steps, twirling between what I wanted to say and what I felt I needed to hide. "It's ironic, really," my sister said, the smirk on her face growing wider. "You're the one holding a grudge when it's me who has all the responsibility." My teeth gritted in frustration as I stepped forward, refusing to let her goad me any longer. "You know you don't deserve everything you have," I said, pointing a finger at her as if it could puncture the delusions she wrapped herself in. "You didn't earn that internship through hard work. It was handed to you because you fit the mold." I could feel the energy shift in the room, growing heavier with each passing second. "That's not my fault," she shot back, her expression darkening. "Maybe your choices led to all of this." Those words felt like daggers, slicing through whatever delicate thread kept our relationship intact. "It's not about the choices, you know that. It's that you have always been the favorite," I yelled, my voice rising to a fever pitch despite my attempts to rein it in. I could feel the air thickening around me, a charged silence enveloping us. My father's face turned dark, and there was an element of fear mingled with something else, an understanding perhaps that came with years of family drama. "Enough," my father said, his authoritative voice rumbling like thunder. We do not air our dirty laundry here. He crossed his arms, the tightness of his posture signaling that this was not up for debate. My chest tightened as I unshed tears pricked at my eyes. So, what now? You just want me to quietly accept powerlessness. Who gets to decide who deserves what? This is unfair. I spat, and those words hung in the air, a challenge dangling between us, ripe for the taking. The kitchen clock ticked loudly as the seconds drifted by in a heavy silence. Fair? You think life's fair? You think because you are my daughter you are entitled to something? You need to earn your place, he lectured, his tone betraying a hint of frustration that sent chills down my spine. I felt overly exposed, standing there in front of my family, each word feeling less like a home and more like prison bars constraining me. You know Mother didn't want to leave that money, right? She wanted me to keep it after she passed on. My heart raced painfully as I processed his words. My mother turned sharply, her hands trembling as she dropped the spoon into the pot. What are you implying? She asked, her voice sharp and defensive, yet beneath that was a palpable fear of what was being suggested. I am saying that she loved me more than either of you. It was a statement filled with conviction and pain. My mother's face went pale as though the air had been sucked out of the room. You're lying. My sister jumped to her feet, her pulse racing evident through her porcelain skin. You can't even prove it. You think you can just stir things up. She could hardly get the words out, stumbling over her own disbelief. What would you know about love when you've taken everything for granted? I can say the same for you, I shot back, my voice trembling with rage. I took a step back, feeling unmoored, aware that with every passing moment our family was fracturing. My heart raced as I felt the atmosphere thicken again, emotions tangling like vines around our necks, choking us slowly. Oh, is that how it is? My father thundered, finally making eye contact with me. You think playing the victim will somehow change reality? You are absolutely mistaken. He pointed a finger at me, and for a moment I felt small, an insignificant piece lost on a chessboard. Maybe I should just walk out, I said, my voice softer as a plan began to form in my mind, a way to take control, to prove I could dismantle this facade and show my parents just how wrong they were. Maybe it's time you realize that I don't need your approval. I turned away from their suffocating presence, the gravity pulling at me lessened by the thought of making my exit. My back to them felt exhilarating, the thrill of possibility coursing through my veins like a tidal wave crashing ashore. Where do you think you are going? My mother asked, but there was an edge of uncertainty in her voice now. I did not answer. Instead, I felt my heartbeat echoing in my ears as I reached for the front door, the cool metal handle gleaming like a beacon of freedom. But before I could grasp it, my sister rushed forward, blocking my path. Are you really going to walk out? You'll regret this, she hissed, her eyes blazing with an intensity I had never seen before. My resolve took a hit, her expression igniting doubt within me. You think running away changes anything? It won't take away the fact that you lost. The words hung between us like a guillotine poised to drop. I refuse to be a pawn in your games any longer, I murmured, my heart racing as I thought of the years of resentment that had boiled within me. As I locked eyes with her, I could feel the determination settling in my bones. I will take what's mine, in whatever way I must. With that, I threw open the door, letting a gust of wind rush past me, carrying the chilly air with it, and along with it, all the turmoil and pain that had consumed this household. My family stood behind me, their stunned silence echoing in my ears as if they too were beginning to realize the gravity of the chasm that lay between us now. Go then, but you'll regret it, my father finally called after me, but his words felt like a distant echo, fading into the nighttime air around me. I felt exhilarated, ready to become something beyond the shadows of the people who had claimed to love me most. I stepped out onto the porch, the cool night air brushing against my skin, but my heart was still racing, a storm raging within. The darkness around me was thick with uncertainty, but as I stood there, I realized that I had just taken the first step toward reclaiming what had been taken from me. This family drama was far from over, and in that moment, wrapped in the silence of the night, I knew I wasn't just walking away. I was charging ahead with every intention of returning for what I deserved. I sat at the long, polished dining table, the elegant crystal chandelier casting a grim glow over the scene unfolding before me. The smell of roasted chicken filled the air, a stark contrast to the tension that suffocated us. My heart raced as I glanced around the table, taking in my family, the ones who should have my back, yet felt more like strangers. My mother was on her phone, scrolling absently, her perfectly manicured fingers clicking away loudly, oblivious to the storm brewing. My father sat across from me, His hands clasped tightly, jaw clenched, the muscles in his neck strained as he tried to maintain some semblance of composure. My sister sat next to me, her eyes darting between our parents, and a flicker of concern crossed her face, quickly replaced by a mask of indifference. And my brother, with that smug smirk plastered on his face, took a bite of his chicken. The sound of his chewing was the only thing breaking the tense silence. "I can't believe you two," I finally blurted out, unable to hold back any longer. The frustration boiled inside me, and I felt it spilling over. "Do you even care about what is happening here? What about the inheritance?" The word hung heavily in the air, as if an invisible cloud had settled over the room, suffocating us all. I knew what was coming, but I pressed on, my voice steady despite the quaking in my chest. "Do you just expect me to sit here while you both pretend like nothing happened?" My father's head snapped up, the fury in his eyes piercing through me like a knife. "You need to understand, Scarlett, that we made our decision based on what's best for the family. This isn't just about you." His voice was icy, cutting through the air. I could see my sister shift uncomfortably in her seat, her fingers picking at the edge of her napkin. "What's best for the family?" I shot back, my voice cracking slightly. "You guys chose him over me. You favored my brother when it came to the house, the money, $150,000. How is that fair? You just cut me off like I was nothing, and you expect me to be okay with this. You act as if you have some sort of right to the money," my brother retorted, his casual demeanor slipping into arrogance. "Mom and Dad decided to give me what I needed for the business, for the future. I deserve it. You still have plenty of time to figure out your path." He smirked, leaning back as if he'd just delivered the knockout punch, like he was untouchable. "I thought family is supposed to help each other out," I hissed, struggling to maintain my composure. I felt tears welling up in my eyes, blurring my vision. I hated that I was getting emotional, that he could provoke me so easily. My heart raced as the conversation escalated, every word like a dagger. "How can you justify that? You think you're so much better just because you have that stupid business." The table went silent, save for the clinking of my sister's fork against her plate, a desperate attempt to break the tension. My mother finally looked up from her phone, her expression not one of concern or empathy but rather annoyance. "Scarlett, it is not just about money. You always make everything about money. There is much more to our family than what is in the bank." Her tone dripped with condescension, eliciting a rush of anger through me. "It is." I cried out, my fists clenched on the table, feeling the cool wood pressing into my palms. "You don't understand, you never have. This isn't just about being cut off, it's about being betrayed. What I thought we had, it's all gone, just like that." The defensiveness washed over my parents. My mother's eyes narrowed, and I could see the dark shadows of disbelief lining her features. "I don't see you working hard like your brother. You want the money, but what have you done to earn it? Where is your motivation?" My voice cracked, my breath hitching as the words stung like bees. "I've spent years helping Dad with his accounts. I've put in more hours than he knows. Just because I do not want to run a company doesn't mean I do not deserve a chance. I chose to support my family, but apparently that means nothing to you. That is not the same at all." My father jumped in, his greasy voice thick with disdain. "You do not have the vision or grit for that kind of lifestyle. You chose this path when you could have done something meaningful with your life." I could see the family dynamic rapidly unraveling before me, my brother's smugness glaring like blood in the water. "I'm not you, I don't want to be you." I slammed my palms into the table, rattling the silverware and shaking the glasses, which teetered but did not spill. "That kind of life is what makes me happy. I may not have worked for the company or that $150,000, but that doesn't make me less of a person. I don't want to be treated like I'm some failure because I chose a different path." My sister's eyes widened, and for a fleeting moment, I thought I saw her pick a side. But then, she glanced at our parents, her shoulders tense and eyes hardening, and I realized she was in this with them, a silent accomplice. "What do you think you'll do if you actually have to earn your place in this family?" my brother taunted, the audacity gleaming off him. "You think throwing a tantrum will give you your way. You don't know the first thing about fighting for what you want. Do you even have a plan?" "You know what?" I shot back, my voice low but laced with venom. I could feel the adrenaline coursing through my veins. "I'm done. I can't keep pretending any longer. Maybe this family is better off without me." The words left my mouth like a strike, aimed to hurt as much as I felt wounded, and immediately I regretted their impact. The room was tense, the atmosphere charged like the calm before a storm. My mother's expression fell into a mix of shock and indignation, but I could hardly care anymore. I shoved my chair back and stood, my legs shaking slightly beneath me. "If you truly think I don't deserve anything from this family or the memories of what we built, then maybe I should just walk away. Where will you go? My father shot back, his final attempt at tethering me to a life I didn't want. You'll just become a nobody out there. No one will care about you. His words tested my resolve, pulling at insecurities I'd harbored for years. No one cares about you either, I threw back, feeling a rush of strength at the culmination of all this repressed anguish. I steadied my breath, focused on gathering the bravery that was slowly kindling within. You all chose my brother. You think he's the only one who matters here. He may have a shiny business and a carelessly large inheritance, but that doesn't define our family. You can keep your money and your favor, I don't need it. A deafening silence filled the room, thick enough to slice through. My heart pounded in my ears, and I felt a bizarre sense of freedom swell within me. Watching my brother's smirk fade to confusion, tasting victory on the tip of my tongue was exhilarating. But before I could relish the moment further, my mother exploded. Fine, if that's how you feel, then leave. You are right. We will choose your brother every time. He understands what it takes to have something meaningful in life. Her words cut like a knife, and I felt a piece of myself shatter at that moment. The tension had spiked to unbearable heights as I stared in her eyes, searching for any semblance of remorse or understanding. But all I saw were icy walls protecting her wrong decision. My breath hitched, the reality of the moment crashing down on me like the shattered pieces of my heart. I felt isolated, abandoned in my own family, like a ship lost at sea, desperately searching for land. I could feel the boiling rage and despair bubbling inside of me, compelling me to articulate my feelings, to scream until they heard me, but I remained focused on my next steps. You want me to walk away? Fine. You will regret this, I said, turning on my heel. You're going to miss me when I'm gone. I rushed out of the dining room, heart racing, fueled by a combination of heartbreak and defiance. As I reached the front door, I paused for a second, unsure if I would turn back. The urge to bang my fist against the doorframe clashed with the need to escape. Ultimately, I forced the door open, feeling the cool air rush in as the weight of years of neglect washed over me. Come crawling back, my brother yelled after me, but I slammed the door shut, plunging myself into silence. I stepped out onto the porch, the late afternoon sun casting streaks of golden light that felt more like chains than warmth. I inhaled deeply, sensing the fresh air filling my lungs, and I knew in that moment I would find a way to reclaim my voice. With every step I took away from that house, away from that family, I felt the fire inside of me grow. My thoughts raced ahead as I resolved myself to confront the future and whatever that held. There was a storm brewing beneath my skin, one I could not yet articulate, but it was there, pulsing just beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to strike back. As I walked down the driveway, the realization hit me. They may have pushed me away, but I wasn't finished yet. The winds of change were howling, and I was ready to make my mark. Something in me had clicked. It was time for me to take control. I would rise from this betrayal, and I would reclaim what was rightfully mine. With that thought echoing in my head, I moved forward, ready to shake the very foundations of my family once more.